In the Senate, South Dakota Republican John Thune is the #2 member of the GOP conference. He says work is underway to avoid that mid-November shutdown, and the reality of that possibility could spur action then as well.
It seems like, and what happened and this with respect to the potential shutdown on October 1 or September 30, that there was just enough sense of urgency toward the end that we can't let this happen, and everybody kind of came together. I hope that happens again a few weeks from now, but we are facing yet the specter of another deadline, which is going to make it even more necessary and should compel people to want to avoid that by starting to move the normal appropriations process and get these bills enacted. And hopefully that next time it'll be a little easier lift than it was this time.
So considering some of the crisis situations that are unfolding right now over in the House, they've got the speaker upheaval right now. Over in the Senate, again, things kind of take time on that front. Still a funding debate to be sorted through there, not to mention the fact that 2024 being an election year. At what point do you think a farm bill in this Congress is no longer a feasible idea?
I'm optimistic and hopeful as always, but I do think that, we now have the calendar year. We missed the fiscal year, which was September 30th, which is when the current farm bill expires. We're operating kind of now on borrowed time, but I think we will have to do some sort of extension at the end of the calendar year if a farm bill hasn't passed. And I think right now that could be a very real possibility that we have to do some sort of an extension. There doesn't seem to be an agreement among Republicans and Democrats on the committee about priorities. The chair, Debbie Stabenow, the senator from Michigan, has indicated that she doesn't want to use any of the funds that were allocated during the so-called Inflation Reduction Act last summer, about $20 billion, in the commodity title of the bill. And, our members argue that you got to put more farm in the farm bill. The commodity title is the part that deals with farmers. At some point, she's going to have to commit to working with Republicans on dealing with the crop insurance program, the ART program, the PLC program, the safety net provisions in the commodity title, which is where most of our members want, the attention focused. So until there comes a better meeting of the minds, which at the moment I'm not seeing, I think we could be, a short-term extension or some sort of extension of the existing bill could be in store for us unless she's willing to come around on that.
Well, you lead me into my next question. If you'll indulge the hypothetical conversation of an extension at the end of the year, what do you think the time frame on that looks like? Is it short-term to move something in early 24? Is it a longer term to get you past the elections?
Well, there's I think, an inherent incentive and motivation for the Democrats who control the Senate right now to get an outcome on the farm bill. So I would hope that any extension would be short term and that there would be more of a sense of urgency. But, we haven't seen that out of them yet. There's no evidence that there's any intention of scheduling a markup, or for that matter, as I said, any evidence that the chair wants to put more farm in the farm bill and actually focus on farmers and ranchers instead of all this other stuff that has become now kind of the priority for a lot of the Democrats here in the Senate. It's in everybody's interest to get a farm bill done. I've been around this a long time. This is my 5th farm bill. I've seen lots of extensions, some for as long as a year, but that's never the best way to do it. It's always advantageous to try and get the new policy in place, modernize and update from the last one. Lots changed in the last 4 or 5 years in agriculture, and we need to have a policy that reflects that for our farmers.
Senate Minority Whip John Thune says he's supportive of the idea to bring Inflation Reduction Act conservation funding into the Farm Bill's baseline, but he differs with his Democratic colleagues on how that money should be spent.
I think that $20 billion, they kind of squirreled it away. It's like this little sort of pet fund, I think, that they had in place that they just wanted to do climate stuff with. Well, they're doing a ton of climate stuff anyway. I'd plug it back into the commodity title of the bill. If they want to fold some of the conservation money there into the conservation title of the farm bill, into programs that we know work for farmers and ranchers, fine. But, again, sort of trying to put aside all that money for their undefined sort of vague climate agenda to me, is completely missing the point. And they've got to come around on that.
If we can get a little bit in the weeds here, Senator, a lot of folks looking to improve the producer safety net in this next farm bill, and a lot of people in your home state of South Dakota are suggesting perhaps updating base acres could be a way to do that. But we've seen some analysis from the GOP committee staff that suggests that might be something that, in their terms, might pit farmers against farmers. Is a base acre update something that is politically feasible as a way to improve the producer safety net in this next farm bill?
Well, I mean, I think what what we need to do on base acres, and again, is kind of align the risks associated with planting certain crops with the payments that come. And I think right now there's just been a decoupling almost, if you will. You've got so many farming areas around the country, regions around the country, that are no longer planting certain crops that still get payments because they still got base acres allocated. And then you've got places like in the Dakotas where we've increased production in certain areas. And so farmers have all these planted acres now. They use soybeans as an example, or corn, and can't get the payments, don't align with the actual risk taken by farmers because this antiquated base acre system that we have. So yes, I propose changing it. I proposed changing it in the last farm bill. But I do understand how it impacts across the country, and that in farm bills, you have to try and find the sort of sweet spot, if you will, between different regions of the country and how these policies distribute or play out. That's going to be a very heavy lift. I know I've talked to the ranking Republican on Senator Bozeman about it. Others on the Democrat side who are very opposed to it. Certainly would benefit a state like South Dakota, which is why I continue to put it into the equation.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Senator Bozeman. I want to wrap up with a comment he's made repeatedly, including on this program, saying that he's not willing to vote for a farm bill that doesn't improve the producer safety net. He said that many times. That's his position. What's yours?
I agree with him on that. I think we're in the same place. And I think, for that matter, pretty much every Republican on the committee is very interested in a farm bill that actually is about farmers and ranchers and about production agriculture. Ultimately, farm bills should be about farmers and ranchers. It should be about creating certainty and predictability with respect to the policies, so they have the right incentives to plant, to do what they want to do, which maximizes their return. Well, that's why I think it's important that we get a farm bill in place, so at least they know what the rules are that they're going to be playing by in a time when you've got this kind of uncertainty.
Well, those rules, as you mentioned, expired recently, now on borrowed time on Capitol Hill, looking to get a new farm bill. We'll keep a close eye on how that process is unfolding. But for now, Senator Thune, thanks for joining us.
Always good to be with you. Thanks, Spencer.